today we're going to make mermaid tails. They're all over the internet, or at least on my feed and Facebook, and I don't know how to knit. It takes too long, and so I sew. These are a couple that I've already made, basically to make sure that I teach you the best way. So here's a purple one and a pink one. I have more purple fabric left over, so I'm going to show you on the purple one, although I might have some footage from when I started the pink one that you'll be watching. The things that I have done differently from most mermaid tails is I have made a drawstring just with lace. I thought it was prettier than a shoestring. That way, if the little girl wants to play dress up in it, she doesn't have to like bundle the blanket around her waist and walk around like this. She can string it up. And I've also put foot mittens into the tail so that her feet can go all the way into the tail, flap around. So let's set these finished ones aside and bust out the pattern. All I did is think, okay, what size is this girl? And make a basic tail shape. I did it, you know, folded over so that it would be symmetrical. And then I have my little toe mittens that are going to go to the end. Obviously it needs to be the same width, and then just come out just a little bit for toes. I've come 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches, but 2 of those inches are seam allowance, so I really only came 4 inches. And I've got a waistband, which is, you know, where the drawstring is. This is just half of it. I did it on the fold. So you can see this spans the width of my tail, but then of course there's going to be the back side. So either cut 2 of these or do it on the fold to where you have the continual waistband with only 1 seam, like in the center back, which is a little bit prettier and less bulky than having 2 seams hitting your same side seams, which you will have down here. You'll actually have the 2 toe mittens, so that's 2 sets of seam allowances, 2 tails, and then your fin. So a lot of seam allowance down at the bottom. It gets a little bulky. If your machine isn't set to handle polar fleece, because that's what I'm making this out of, you can make it out of minky fabric or polar fleece. Minky fabric is a little bit slipperier, so if you're not good at slippery fabrics, do polar fleece. It'll stick to itself a little better. And it doesn't need to be overlocked or turned under to hem because it doesn't fray. So that's what makes these fast and easy and a nice little project. For my tail, I have chosen like the whale tail shape, this one. But as you can see here, you could do like a seashell kind of shape, you could do half moon kind of shape, or the tail. It's up to you, whatever you think is prettiest. This one obviously has more turns and twists, but it's really not that much more difficult. This one, of course, would be the easiest. And all I did here is draw the shape how I thought it should look. If you need to look at a picture, you know, just go with what you think looks good. Don't make it tiny. There's nothing worse than a mermaid tail with a tiny fin. It's like, how's she gonna swim? So make it nice and big. The grander the better. It'll be much more dramatic as they sit on the couch and lounge with their mermaid tail. So there we have all of our pattern pieces. And of course then I just cut them out. Okay, I'm gonna take these finished products over here again and show you the cutout pieces. This is the waistband. I cut it all in one piece, so literally I'll just have a back seam that'll go together, right sides together, and then that'll attach to the waist. I've got my tail, my fin I should say, and of course I'm going to sew this all the way around the edges. I've done an inch seam allowance just for the sake of having room. You definitely don't need an inch seam allowance, but do whatever you're comfortable with. I'm gonna sew this all the way around except for where it meets the tail. So not right here. This is going to stay open. And with my little toe mitten that's gonna stick inside the fin, I'm again gonna sew all the way around except for here, because that's where your toes are going in. And for the actual tail, I'm going to just sew up the sides. I'm not going to sew the waist seam or the fin seam, just the sides. Right sides together again. With this kind of polar fleece, it really doesn't matter. There is no right side, but with anything that you do have a right side and a wrong side to, make sure that you're sewing right sides together on all of this stuff. Okay? All right, let's go over to the sewing machine. We are going to sew around the edges of all of these things, leaving the toe part open, which is the flat area. Don't forget to back tack, and you can make your stitch a little bit longer than normal because this stuff is really thick, so it's gonna eat it up a little faster. If you're using slippery fabric, of course pin it together, but with this polar fleece it pretty much sticks to itself. And back tack. Next, we've got our tail. Again, not sewing the flat parts together, just the outsides and around. I did the 1-inch seam allowance. If you did it shorter or narrower, don't forget. Make sure your tail ends are lining up. If you feel like pinning it at the end, just so you know you're on the right track, do that. Needle down to pivot. I'm also going to take this middle section and pin it before I get there. Make sure it stays nice and lined up. Pivot. Get your ends together. Okay, you get the drift. The next step in our process is to butterfly your seams open. We don't have to do that on the mitten, the toe mitten part, because they're not going to get turned. It's just going to stay like that. But for the tail and the fin, they are going to get turned, so you're going to need to press them open. Okay, that is the fin part. This is the waistband. I have made it into a circle. I'm going to press that seam open. And then for the fin, obviously we have a whole bunch of curves. So we're gonna need, to snip at each of the curves. Like literally everywhere that it curves, you're gonna have to snip. And if it curves a whole bunch in one area, snip it a whole bunch. Let's see, that's pretty straight. Need another snip, another snip, another snip. And then when you get to the tip of the tail, you're gonna cut it down to basically nothing. Just don't cut into your stitching, but cut it at a V so that when you turn it, it's not all bulky inside of there, right? You can even cut down a little bit further because there's only 2 inches across here, and if I put these on the inside, which I'm going to do, I'm going to butterfly the seams open. You just don't want it to get bulky right there at the tip. See? Okay, so after I've gone around and snipped all my curves, this one you can't very well get the iron like into all these places, so sometimes it's helpful to just lay it flat, open it up, butterfly it, press it, butterflied, but then you're going to have to flip it over and press this side down to where, see, like that. All this is doing is making it way easier to turn inside out, where you're not going to be like shoving your hand in there trying to get the curve just right. If you've pressed it beforehand, when you turn it inside outward, pretending like I've already done this, the seam will make, this is the part I've pressed. I have not pressed this part, and it's not like it's denting in and it won't come out very nicely. Here I've already pressed and it's no problem. Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready for you to press me that way. And then I'm just going to pull this tail, you know, until I can't pull it any longer. You might even take a little, okay, this is dangerous. Don't do it with sharp scissors. Do it with something a lot duller, but like to pull this out, you know, you can do it with your finger for the most part, because you're going to try to get it to the crispest point you can, but it's polar fleece. You're not going to get it to a crisp point anyway. So that's about as good as I'm going to get it. And once I've done all these, I'm going to then press it on the right side. Okay? Got that? Easy breezy lemon squeezy. Now that we have our tail pressed and ready, I'm going to look at how off my little calculations of the toe mittens are. Okay, I'm off by a 1/2 inch here and a 1/2 inch here. So I'm going to take in a 1/2 inch and come around. But what I mainly want to do here, and you can use invisible ink, a little chalky guy, pencil, something that's going to come off in the wash, and draw around your toe mitten. Obviously you don't have to make the toe mitten part, that's just something that I thought would be an added little bonus. I wonder if I can see the chalk better. Those little lead rotary pins are the best. and I have one of those, but it is with another project at another place. So anyway, so I've drawn my little area that this goes, and then I'm going to make my lines for the fin. What I did on the last one, which worked out very nicely, is, let me get my ruler, I made a line straight down the center, right about 2 or 3 inches before you get to the V, and I made a really nice curve, and where it ends here, oh, I'm thinking it'd be better if I mark it with something to show you so that you can see on the video, because this pencil, obviously you're not being able to see. Okay, so made my line, and I'm going to put a little tape where I ended it so that you can see. And I'm going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I'm going to space them out pretty evenly. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. Okay, 1, 2, 3. This one's going to go straight to the center of my, you see that? To the center. And this last one will go in between these two. Now down here, obviously, is a lot less space than this. So I'm going to divide this into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one will come to the center, like we've already talked about. This one will come, you know, so forth and so on. So center, that guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those guys are about 1 inch apart. And then I'm just going to make my lines. That one. Follow the curve. This guy will kind of just totally follow the edge all the way around. After I've done that, I can fold it over and mark where all of the tape meets this tail so that I've got the exact same start points and it'll look symmetrical. Okay, my tapes are coming off because I taped them to the table and not the tail. Hello. Okay, then I'm going to top stitch. Okay, this is the part that is not tricky at all, but just remember this section where the toes are, I'm going to do first 1 layer, right? I'm gonna top stitch with my machine. I'm gonna do purple so it'll show up. You could do whatever color you want because you want it to show up but not clash. Okay, like I wouldn't put red on this. Not that, yeah, whatever. Do what you want. So I'm going to, from where the toe mitten arches, I know you can't see it, but there's an arch right here. I'm going to follow this line with top stitching and follow this line with top stitching and this one, this one, this one. I'm going to stop right here. Then I'm going to do both layers, meet up with each of these lines with this going through both layers. Understand? Okay, let's take it to the sewing machine. Tail, we have our lines. We are going to go 1 layer. I'm going to start in the middle, making sure I do not sew both layers. Here we go. to my toe mitten line. Where'd I put my scissors? There you are. Got my scissors. Snip, snip. Start the next line. Next. Now that we've got the toe area done, I'm going to come back to where the toe finishes and pick it up from there. Now I'm going through both layers. Now I'm going to catch the next guy. Catch the next guy. And the next guy. And the next guy. Ow, hello. Oh, nail. Okay, not that I have nails anyway, but you know. Okay, now I'm going to move over to this side. Okay. And now, of course, go back and snip all your threads. Now we have the tail done, the toe mitten done. I mean, yeah, tail, fin, toe mitten. Okay. Now we have the toe mitten, the fin, and the tail done. The tail is still inside out. Right sides are on the inside. The tail, or I mean, the fin part is folded, obviously, right sides out, and then the toe mitten, you want the pretty side on the inside, ugly side on the outside, because your toes are going to go in here. So we are going to shove this guy inside here, lining up the side seams. Side seam, side seam. Got it? Then our tail is going to get nice and folded to shove inside. I keep calling this thing the tail, and that's the fin. Anyway, you understand what I'm saying. The fin is going inside the tail. Swoosh, whoosh, 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 whoosh. And now I'm going to again line up the seams. So I have side seams lining up. Let me see if I can get as close as possible to, okay. So side seams lining up. Side seam of tail, side seam of fin, side seam of toe mitten. I'm going to take some pins and pin it in place. And get the other side, tail, fin, toe mitten. And pin. Right? Now I'm going to pin down the center. Not going to pull, but I'm going to nicely ease it out. All three of them. Lining up my edges. Pinning all layers together. And the back side. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Very nice. Oh. Okay. This is going to go seam it all around at sewing machine, and then I'll be able to turn it inside out. And just as I predicted, ta-da! There it is. Now, what I am going to do is stick my hand on the inside and bring all of my seam allowances this way, so that everything lays nice and flat. I'm going to go and top stitch all around the edge so that everything stays going one way. You could make it go the other way. That's really up to you. I think it's neither here nor there. I'm just going to do it up because it seems a little bit easier to me. So I'm going to top stitch that, and this part of the tail will be done, and then the waist. I have my waistband, and there's the center back seam. Right sides together, so this is obviously the right side. We're not looking at seam allowances. There's the wrong side on the inside. I want my center back. This is my front. So I've got my pretty stitches on the front. So I want my center back seam on the back. I'm going to do exactly what I did with the tail, where I'm making a donut-y kind of thing, you know, right sides together. Doody-doody-do. So my center back, I notched the center, and all I did with that is fold it in half, find the middle, and notch. So this is my center back. That's going to go there. I'm going to pin it. And then my center front is going to go there. And now all I have to do is find the middle, kind of nicely ease it around, and just keep pinning as you go. Make sure that your seams are butterflied. Sometimes it's best to just pin both sides of the seam open, even though they're right next to each other. Pin, pin, pin. Okay. Take this to the sewing machine. I'm going to do my top stitching and my waist. I'm going to sew my 1-inch seam allowance, and once it's all done, then it'll fold over and all that good stuff, which I'll show you in a minute. Now in the center of the waistband, I've got my little notch right here. I'm going to write or draw 2 little lines. Those are going to be my buttonholes. See them? And I'm going to thread the ribbon through there. If you don't have a buttonhole machine, especially with this fleece, you could totally just cut it and it'll do pretty well because it's not going to fray. But for reinforcements, I'm going to go ahead and make a buttonhole stitch. Okay, here we are at the machine with the buttonhole attachment. I'm going to push my buttonhole foot stitch, shove that down. I've got it at 2 inches, which should be enough. Uh-oh, it's not moving. Come on, girl. Uh-oh, that is not good sounds. Why are you not moving, Mrs.? Maybe it's because I got too much stuff going on back here. Trying again. Okay, there it goes. Once you get down to the 2-inch mark, push your reverse. And we're back. We're back. All done with that one. Oh yeah, that's funny. Okay. That guy so messed up because he was being a butthead. Okay, we'll pretend like this is our first one and really don't look at that. Okay, so here we go. Down. Back. And we're done. Buttonhole. Now get your sharp scissors. Where did they go? All the time losing my scissors. There you are. Okay, get your sharp scissors. Take this guy, half him, make a little snip, just a little guy, and then open him back up and actually open him. Do that same to the other one, and then we're going to thread the ribbon through it. After you've got your buttonhole done, change back to your normal foot, get your length of ribbon or string, and find the center. And there it is. We are going to attach this to the center back of your waistband in the lower half. So right at your center back seam, stitch the center of your ribbon down just in this little section, not over top of your seam allowances. Okay, he's all set. And now we can make the ribbon go all the way around, and we're going to meet up our seam allowances. Oh, I don't have any pins under there. Where'd my pins go? Oh, there's my guy. Okay. We're gonna get our seams together and pushing them into the tail, not into the waistband. I'm gonna pin it. I'm gonna keep going all the way around, shoving the lace inside here, and then meeting my seams together, not at all catching the lace. Like, the lace needs to not get near this seam. So push it all the way inside this little folded area. See what we're doing? We're taking the waistband and folding it over, meeting all the seam allowances together, and keeping our lace inside, shoved to the top. We're going to go all the way around there, pinning as we go, because then we're going to stitch in the ditch all the way around. Okay. When we get our lace to the buttonhole, shove it through. Get yourself as much slack as you need in your ribbon. Shove it down inside there. Pin, 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 pin. So now you can see I've got my seam allowances together. The waistband is folded over. This is the inside, this is the outside. The lace is shoved up into the top so that I do not catch it as I'm going to sew through here. Got it? Okay. Go get on this little thingy. Stitch in the ditch all the way around. This is our last step. Oh, hallelujah. So seam allowances are, sorry, didn't mean to flip you off. Seam allowances are going this way, right? And here we go. And we're only on one layer. Pull out your pins as you go. Don't want to break a needle. Rotate the whole thing. pretty thick at the side seams. So nice and gently. Another big bulky seam. I'm not pushing, I'm just spreading open so I can get in the ditch. And we're back to where we started. Back tack. Clip our threads on the underside. You can check, make sure you didn't catch anything. Looks good. Ta-da. All set. And with the drawstring, you just pull. Here we are with the waistband on the machine. I'm going to stitch in the ditch all the way around. And because I cannot hold my phone and do that at the same time, you're just gonna watch part of it. Stitching in the ditch. And back tacking, of course. Now to do the top stitch at where the tail and the fin meet here, remember all the seam allowances are going that way, and you're definitely going to have to take off, if you have one of these on your machine, take that off, get it onto just the armhole thing so that it'll all fit up in there. And stitch right along the edge. You can do the stitch in the ditch on this one as well, but that's really not going to hold everything this way. You want to hold everything that way. So that's what we're doing now. Here are our finished tails. Woohoo! One with the waist all cinched in and one totally flat. Here's our pink tail and our purple tail. Whee! Get out of the sunshine, Mr. Pink Tail. Ta-da! Those, my friends, are the mermaid tails.